Pastor, doesn't science disprove the Bible?
Isn't Genesis just a fairy tale?
Is God for real? Did he really create everything in 6 literal days?
Didn't God just use the Big Bang?
Why is there death and suffering? Do you really believe the Bible?
Didn't man evolve from apes?
For answers to these questions and more, stand by for Believing the Bible.
Welcome to Believing the Bible. This is Scott Lane with our producer Ed Salzadell, both directors at the San Antonio Bible-Based Science Association. We are here to reassure you can believe the Bible from the very first verse. Today we have special guests, and Dave and Mary Jo Nutting. They founded the Alpha Omega Institute 40 years ago. They speak both across the nation and internationally. Alpha Omega is one of 7 young earth creation organizations that have an international impact here in the U.S. They are currently on a swing through Texas, having spoken in Houston, now in San Antonio, and later in Dallas, and that's how we got them into the studio today. Here in San Antonio, they've spoken at Cibolo Valley Baptist Church as well as Castle Hills Christian to more than 400 students, and also will be with us at SABSA. If you would like great information about their ministry, go to discovercreation.org. We really thank you two for being with us, for everything you're doing in the San Antonio area. Mary Jo, I hear that this whole ministry started with a 5-cent book.
That's right, it did. I used to believe in evolution. I was teaching evolution along with everything else that I taught in biology, both high school level and at the junior college level. But I was also a believer at the time, and I didn't know what to do, so I tried to squeeze the two models together. That's what I had been taught to do at a church college, the idea that Genesis is a myth, that God used evolution as his method of creating, and I thought, well, that's a good solution. And so that's what I was believing, but I thoroughly believed in evolution as a scientific model. I thought it was science. And one day I was shopping in a little secondhand store up in Sitka, Alaska. I found a little tiny book, bottom shelf, called Evolution, The Fossils Say No by Dr. Duane Gish. I bought that book for 5 cents, and I read it, and I thought, wow, I always thought the fossils were the best evidence of evolution. And here I'm finding out, no, they're an embarrassment for evolution. I gave the book to Dave. He has a better background in geology and paleontology, and he read the book, and he said, this guy's either crazy or we better start doing some research. And so at that point we began studying this whole issue of creation versus evolution, beyond what the textbooks tell you, beyond what you find in the museums and the media and so on. And so as we studied, we became very convinced that the biblical model of creation fit the facts of science better than the evolutionary model did. So you might say we evolved from evolutionists to creationists, and it didn't take millions of years to do that.
That's a bad word in creation, but we're going to allow it today.
You want her to stay in the house, or do you want to run her out now?
No, we won't run her out.
Okay.
I'm always heartened to hear you tell that story. I know that Dr. Gish became a mentor to y'all, as he did to me on a very small basis compared to what he did for you. But at that time, y'all were instructors in a college, and you eventually got your education in creation science from ICR and Christian Heritage College. How did that go?
Yeah, it was ICR. We'd already had degrees from our universities, etc. Went back then, took more education, secular education, and then went out to ICR for the graduate program. That really went well. We enjoyed being right alongside of some top creationists in the world, actually. And what a blessing it was to learn from these very godly men, whether it be Dr. Henry M. Morris, Dr. Gish, Gary Parker, Dr. Austin, and a whole bunch of others as well.
So I always comment on Steve Austin. No one else would have been crazy enough to dive under a log mat that's bobbing up and down ready to kill you.
Yeah, I realize that.
Yeah. Early on, y'all did some different things for ICR before you founded Alpha Omega. I refer to the fact that I thought you were pack mules for ICR. Tell me about that.
Well, not exactly pack mules, but we were leading their backpack tours into the Grand Canyon. They had a bus tour, raft tour, and a backpack trip. And so for at least 12 years, we led backpacking trips with their groups for ICR and teaching them the geology, biology that you find in the Grand Canyon.
We also did some things with ICR. They would turn over a few speaking things to us. One in public school, I remember specifically, and the students there thought, oh, you're just going to come in and teach the Bible, and we're ready for that. They were very, very impressed when we came in with science. They thought, we didn't think you had any science. Another significant connection was with a debate that they set up in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and ICR didn't have anybody available to come, and so they said, well, check with the Nettings. So we were able to go up and do some programs in the public school, and then also to do a debate up there with 3 evolutionists versus 3 creationists. That was an interesting time.
That was good networking. Y'all set me up like that to go down to the Rio Grande Valley one time to speak when y'all weren't available, and that's always great opportunities that come out of that. Now, leaving the colleges as instructors, y'all really changed life course, and a huge part of that was starting the Alpha Omega Institute. Why?
I'll let Mary Jo answer that.
Yeah.
We had it on our heart to teach creation, and we didn't ever even look at any of the traditional mission organizations, and ICR at that time was looking for PhD scientists. Mm-hmm. We felt that our calling from the Lord was more in the educational area, to take the research science and put it down at a level that laymen could understand. And so we ended up going back to Dave's hometown area, Grand Junction, Colorado, oftentimes called the Dinosaur Triangle. There's so many fossils out there, and in the rock layer, Dave always likes to say, you can see the rocks in the West. You go back to the Midwest, they're covered with all this green stuff.
This horrible green stuff. You can't even see a rock, hardly.
Yeah, that horrible green stuff is what we live off of. But anyway, folks, you are listening to Believing the Bible. This is Scott Lane with Ed Salzadell and our guest today, Dave and Mary Jo Nutting. If you would like to learn more, go to sabsa.org. That is SABBSA.org. We're here today talking with the founders of the Alpha Omega Institute. A question I get all the time that I know you get all the time. Why creation science? It's so controversial. Why not just preach Jesus?
Yep, we get that. We first saw the significance of that whole question, that whole issue, when we were still in Alaska, long before we started the Alpha Omega Institute. We had a student up there he was a great student. He loved the outdoors, and Dave and he would go fishing and so on together, but anytime that discussion got close to spiritual things, the student would say, no way. And finally he says, Dave, I can't buy that Jesus stuff. And Dave said, why not? And he says, because evolution is a fact. That means Genesis is false. He said, if God can't get the first book of the Bible right, why would I believe anything else he had to say? Well, at that point, we had invited Dr. Morris up to our little school up in Alaska, and he did a series of presentations, and the student came to those presentations, and afterwards he said, if evolution isn't true, that doesn't leave much, does it? He said, I better start doing some thinking. And then within a couple of months, he became a Christian, because now he had a foundation for faith. So people will say, well, why do you spend time with creation? It's not a salvation issue. Well, yes and no. For Jeff, it was a salvation issue. The stumbling block that kept him from even considering the claims of Christ was that he thought evolution was a proven scientific fact, so he thought the Bible was false. And so knocking out that evolutionary foundation and replacing it with a biblical foundation and the science of creation really made a difference for Jeff.
The grand challenge I find in ministry today is that our society has decided that the Bible is nothing but passé myth, that God doesn't exist, and they have no belief in Scripture whatsoever. We're faced with the same thing that Paul was on Mars Hill, that we are talking to an audience that has no background. Yep. And then we have Christians who believe, well, it's all of Genesis is allegory, etc. And the grand problem there with, well, if the flood didn't occur, the big fish story didn't occur, when does the Bible start to tell us the truth? Yeah. That's why this message is so pivotal for today, and to be able to even have a discussion on the gospel with people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Genesis is the absolute foundation for all of the gospel. And if you can't believe the first book of the Bible, how do you believe John 3:16?
When do they start telling the truth?
That's a good question.
If it's not with the first verse, when is it?
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing, people will say, oh, creation's way back there in Genesis. Yeah. We should read the Gospels. Well, if we read through all of Scripture, we find creation is mentioned over and over and over again throughout Scripture. It's not just in the book of Genesis.
Not only creation, but the flood, etc. All go right back to the Bible.
One of the things I point out in my book, What If God Wrote the Bible, is that there are 500 crossovers between the New Testament and the Old the New Testament saints believe in the Old Testament as real history. And we have to do that as well if we're going to be effective. Now, one difference from your organization from the other creation groups that I know of is that y'all are like the Outward Bound of creation science. Outward Bound is an organization that really preaches that we're going to get out in nature and do, because most other people are just sitting in a building somewhere doing discussions, but y'all have a variety of activities where y'all get outside.
Yeah, we do. We love it.
We started doing family camps back in 1986 because we knew that people had limited vacation time, and maybe one of them wanted to go to a conference, but they wouldn't do that, if bring the family, because family didn't want to go to a boring old conference. So we said, well, let's combine it with a camp. So we started doing that. It gave us opportunity to teach creation, to get people out in, to see God's beautiful creation, to learn the evidences there, but also have some wonderful family activities. So now we've kind of switched a little bit from doing located camps as much as we are doing tours now. And we love to do the tours. Now, we started doing tours with ICR years ago, and then when they kind of quit, we said, no, we got to keep doing tours. We want to get people out into nature to see what's there.
We thank you for your ministry. What we're going to do in our next program is we're going to get more into exactly what all Alpha Omega offers and what y'all are doing. I do want to remind people that you can learn about this ministry and everything that it offers in terms of tours, speakers, articles, and so much more at discovercreation.org. Believing the Bible now has a new way you can support our ministry and get some great gifts. For a donation of $10 or more, we will email you a copy of Repetition in the Bible by Jack Cassione, which shows the Bible to be a self-proving document and shows God's protection of His Word over the ages. For a donation of $25 or more, we will also mail you a copy of Scott Lane's book, What If God Wrote the Bible, showing 6 things we should find in the world and in the Bible if God is the author of the Bible. To get these great gifts, send your check or money order to SABSA at 7620 Avery, Live Oak, Texas 78233. That's SABBSA at 7620 Avery Road, Live Oak, Texas 78233. This information for ordering is also on our contact page at sabsa.org.
Information for creation events in our area are on our website's calendar page. For more information or to schedule a presentation, go to sabsa.org or call 210-599-7240. When you go to our website, you can click on a link to our newsletter. Our website has a link for contact information on which you can order our newsletter to be emailed to you, or you can call us. Also go to whyshouldyoubelieve.com. That is Terry's website containing articles looking at current day issues from a biblical perspective. SABSA meets the second Tuesday of each month at 7 p.m. We are now meeting at Faith Lutheran Church just south of the corner of Jones Maltzberger and Thousand Oaks. There you will find biblical apologetics and creation science teaching found nowhere else in Bexar County, as well as the availability of books and videos on these important subjects. If you missed any part of this show, you can listen to the show anytime by going to the AM 630 KSLR, the Word in South Texas website. Click on KSLR Podcast, scroll down until you find Believing the Bible. Please join us again next Saturday for Believing the Bible. I'm Scott Lane, and for Terry Reed, Dr. Carl Williams, and Ed Salzveld, thanks for listening, and we hope you found today a reason to believe the Bible.